Hello and welcome to the Gothic Unicorn. Today I'm attempting to make some progress on the fabric of my 1/12 scale attic. Now this is a renovation. The doll's house is all built and has been for far too many years. But I've decided, as you might know, to take it in a new direction, and I'm turning it into what I now think it should be. Originally, when I was setting out to do the attic, I wanted it to look semi-abandoned. But it's become clear to me that actually that really wouldn't fit with my house. And so I need it to look finished, but forgotten. And that's what we're aiming for today. I've decided that I'm going to paint the walls of the attic, and at the moment it is yellow because it used to be a child's room, but I'm going to go for a very neutral, sort of very not much of a colour, if that makes sense. This is called China clay and is that sort of nondescript, sort of dirty cream colour. Now I've gone for this because it looks dirty. It is a colour that sort of says to me aged and worn, and that will help me because obviously I don't want this room to look like it's just been painted. So I've selected the paint, I've got to get that painted, but I'm going to actually start with the floor. Now when I did my witch's workroom renovation, I think I showed you in a bit more detail how I do the floor, but I'm going to go through some of it in this, just not in a lot of detail. Now, this is the carpet that I've pulled out of that room today. Still in there, and it was generic doll's house carpet. This is the stuff you can buy, sticky backed. I always put it onto cardboard so I can remove it rather than sticking it to the floor, because my house is wired with wires, so I need to get to them sometimes. And being able to remove the floors is still something that I want to be able to do. So I'm going to use this and a sheet of quite thin, nondescript cardstock to make a base layer template for the floor. I'm going to obviously use the carpet as my guide, which speeds things up a little bit. And then once I've cut it, I will be going and fitting it into the doll's house. Now, as I said in a previous video, I'm actually having a bit of trouble filming in the doll's house attic because it's quite high up. The doll's house has got 10 rooms, including the basement, and we're working right at the top. And getting light in there, holding the camera steady and being able to point things out to you is quite difficult. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do as much as I can on the desk, and then I will show you how things are coming together once there's something to actually show off. So please excuse me if I'm not nipping backwards and forwards to the doll's house in the video, but rest assured I will be taking lots of trips, and that is up and down stairs, to check things fit. But first thing is to do a template base for my floor. And now my floor's not stopping pink. It's what I've got. I might as well use it in the doll's house. I've now got a template that fits. It took a little bit of jiggery pokery because I had to adapt it. Also, the carpet went right to the end of the floor where the roof comes down, and what I've done with the room I've already done is I've ended it a little bit short so that the roof actually sits better. So I've replicated that on this piece. What I've done is I've marked on the back which side is the back of the room. That is just so that while I'm working on it, I don't get confused. The next step is going to be to do the actual floorboards. Now again, I've covered this in detail in a previous video, which I will link, but I'm going to be making my floorboards out of a cereal box. I'm going to be cutting them to 3/4 of an inch wide, and yeah, I've got a lot of work to do, so I'm going to go and start cutting. The floor is done and stuck down. I have left some quite good sized gaps here because I want lots of sort of black to show between the pieces of the floor. This fits really, really well. I have checked it, I have tried it. I'm now going to paint it. I'm going to start off with black, obviously, because I want to fill the gaps in. And to save painting the entire sheet black, I'll just do it on this. And then I'm going to paint the planks of the floor. I will probably do it by just putting a bit of paper around it. You know, so each one is done individually, but black first and then some kind of colour over the top, some kind of wood colour, not sure what. We'll see how it goes. My floor is complete. It's actually had 3 layers of paint. It had a black base layer. Then I used a tan coloured paint to give me a sort of light, basically brown kind of a colour. And then I've used some grey over the top. I have given it a quick coat of Mod Podge just to protect it, and I'm liking how it looks. If I turn it round, you can see I painted each plank individually but on the base, so you do get some variation between the planks, which is really, really good. And I've added my little nail holes. You may or may not be able to see. Just a little hole on the corners of the planks, just so that it looks a bit more realistic. Now the next step is going to be making my fake chimney breast, so I'll clear this off and then we can have a look at that. To make my fake chimney breast, I'm going to use a piece of foam board. It's just a scrap that I've got left over, probably from doing something in one of the other rooms, maybe even from making the fake wall in the witch's workroom. Now the line's marked on there at 7 inches because I have been and I have measured in the doll's house with the floor in place, and I need about 7 inches. I will be checking everything at lots of opportunities just to make sure that I'm right. So that's going to be my height. Now, all I'm making to make this is a very simple box. I have checked the size of the sort of chimney part of the fireplace in the witch's workroom, which is the other side of my attic. And because I'm not putting a fireplace or anything in, I'm just going for a very simple chimney breast, which isn't going to be very big, because generally by the time you get up to attics, they've been reduced in size. Now, I probably should, if I was going to be accurate, shape it and things like that, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go for, I think, about a 2.5 inch width to it, and then it'll be 3/4 of an inch ish deep, and I'm hoping that I can cut everything from this one little scrap and not have to cut into a new sheet. So I'm going to start off by cutting this down in size, and then I'm going to start measuring my different pieces, and when I've got those, we'll stick it together. I've got my pieces cut, and I've checked that the height does work with the floor. Very important, because otherwise you're going to be trimming and things like that. And I've got a slight degree of movement so that I can actually get it into place and everything. So I'm now going to use my smaller pieces and stick them onto the larger one, and make the depth that I'd want for my chimney breast. I just want an effect of a chimney breast. I don't want it to be necessarily reflecting real life. I just want it to reflect that there's some shape there. So I'm just going to use some glue and stick this together. I'm applying plenty of glue. I'm not worrying at the moment because I know I'm going to have to cover this with something, and I'm not yet decided how I'm going to cover it or with what. So we will just line this up to the edge of the front piece and wait for it to dry. It's not complicated building. I will be putting a couple of cross pieces in just to make sure that it maintains its rigidity, but I'm not too worried about that at the moment. I will just fit those in a while. You could do this with a block of wood. You know, you can make it as deep or not as you want. I do want a little bit of depth, and I think that's going to give me somewhere in the region of an inch. Find my little ruler. That's around about an inch. It's just enough that it will stick out from the wall and give me the effect that I want. So that's got to dry, and then I'm going to stick in some pieces. I've got some scraps left over that I'll cut down to size and just make a couple of little supporting pieces inside, and then we can get on with adding some kind of a finish to this. Now, I'm not sure yet. I could stone it like I did my fireplace in the witch's workroom, but I think I'm going to make it look like it's just plastered and just paint it. And in that case, I think I'm probably just going to put a coat of paper of some description over it. Probably want something a bit heavier than printer paper because of being able to paint it afterwards. So I may use a little bit of lightweight cardstock. We'll see what I've got. I went with the cardstock option. This is the 160 GSM cardstock that I normally use for putting through my printer, but it just gives me a nice smooth finish. I did consider putting in some lines so it looked like it was brick that had then been painted, but I decided that it wasn't necessary. It wasn't going to be that obvious, so it'll just get painted in the wall colour for my attic. And that's the next job, is to actually paint the walls and paint this. And then I've got to think about my false wall. I've got an idea how I want to do my false wall, and it is slightly different. So I'm going to have to do a bit of planning and a bit of measuring and things, but yeah, paint next. I have started preparing for my false wall. I've done the painting in the room. You get a bit of a glimpse of it on the chimney breast here. I like how it looks. It actually looks greyer in situ, but that's to do with the light in the room that it's in and all that kind of thing, but I like it. So I've cut my foam board down to the width of the room and to slightly under the height. That's because I've got to account for the floor. put it in the first time and thought, oh my God, it's too short. No, it wasn't. I'd forgotten that the floor wasn't in situ. So with the floor in there, it's great. I've got enough room to be able to manoeuvre. Now what I want to do with this is I'm going to have this piece on the back wall. So I need to allow for that. And then I want a closet and a door. I'm going to do the closet slightly lower height-wise than the door, but I obviously need to get both of those into that remaining space. So I'm going to now sit down with my ruler and figure out where everything's going to go. After much measuring and contemplation and measuring of the door in the witch's workroom, I decided to go with this configuration. I've got my main door through to the back of the attic. That is about 2.5 inches by 6 inch. Not quite a full-size door, but certainly in the UK, attic doors tend to be shorter than normal. And then for the cupboard door, which is going to not have a door on it, it's just going to have my body bag hanging down, I've gone for 5 inches high and 2 inches wide. These sort of built-in cupboards can be any size, and that sort of suits, because what I want to do is I want to actually put where it's hanging from inside a bit higher up, so that it's hanging down. It works with cupboards that we get in this country. It worked with my doll's house. So that's ready. Now to have something to cover it so I can paint it easier, I'm probably just going to use some more of the 160 GSM cardstock. I've got my pieces for making the back. They are going to allow me to position this properly. I will have a piece on each end, a piece making the side wall of the closet, and probably another piece somewhere along there, just to keep it nice and secure. So I'm going to get some glue and some cardstock, and I'm going to cover this. And here it is, all covered in the cardstock. I have just cut out my doorways, and I've just wrapped it over the top a little bit, because that will just stop any rubbing when I put it into the house. So I'm going to paint this with the same paint that I've painted everything else. And actually, if I bring in the chimney breast, you can actually see the difference between the white and the china clay colour that I've gone with. It's going to have a few wrinkles like that, but I don't mind. It's not supposed to look perfect. I'm wondering at the moment whether I'm going to paint my door frame pieces in the same colour. I may just do that, just for ease, paint it with a bit of that. I'm using these coffee stir sticks, as I did in the witch's workroom, and I will be putting a frame around the outside, and then I will be covering up the edges of the foam on the inside. Obviously I'm going to cut them down, not use the shaped ends, but I will do that. And that one's a wee bit bent, but we can work with it or find another one. I'm not sure at the moment whether to go with that or go with the slightly darker colour. I'm probably just going to go with that, or I do have some of the paint that I used in the witch's workroom left, so I might just use that just to differentiate a bit. But that's my next job, is painting. I'm actually getting very close to where I wanted to be with this video. It's took me longer than I intended. We are moving on time-wise, and I'm already thinking about next week's video and thinking about doing something that I can knock out a bit quicker, so then I can work on another one of the more complicated jobs. So yeah, get the paint out and change the colour of this and then work on those. Getting there, and obviously I'm going to do this while it's flat because it's easier, and then I will stick my pieces on the back afterwards to allow me to position it in the doll's house. My false wall is completed. I've got a bit of wrinkling because of putting the paint onto the cardstock, but not enough that I'm worried about it. I've added my door frames, just simple, made out of the coffee stir sticks. It just finishes off the edges and it makes it look a bit more complete. And then obviously I've put my bits on the back which are going to stop it going right back against the wall. I will have to fit in a curtain in the main doorway, and obviously I need to make my body bag to go inside the cupboard area there. But this isn't going to be stuck in yet, so they can be done afterwards. So the next step is to move everything downstairs to the doll's house and have a look at what it all looks like together. And here it is in the doll's house. Now, as I've said, I'm having quite a few difficulties in filming in the doll's house, so you'll have to excuse me. The wall is in at the back and the chimney is in on the side wall, and of course the floor is there. Nothing is stuck in place as yet because I've still got more work to do. I'm liking how it's looking though, and yeah, it's come out pretty good. I'm rather pleased. It's getting the look that I wanted, and once it's all filled, it's going to look like the kind of cluttered and well-used attic that I'm looking for. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe, and until next time, bye.